Hi everyone. Lovely to have you all here. Hi, thank you for joining in. It's my first live after, I think, a year. This is crazy, right? Lovely to have you here. Morning from New York. Yeah, everyone, right where you guys are from. Where are you? No voice? Can you hear my voice? Hopefully you can hear my voice. Wolverhampton, UK, New Jersey, Texas, Malaysia, Cyprus. Hi, Cyprus. Hi, everyone. South Africa, Florida, Ireland. Oh, India, Kuwait, New York. Oh my God, we're all over. I'm in Malaysia currently. It's 9:30 p.m. Made myself a cup of tea. I'm going to be joined by Mo, Nepal, Philippines, Belgium, oh my God, from all over. Okay, let me see if I have him here. No, I have people requesting to join, but not Mo. I'll give it a couple of seconds. Please, can you help me? I can't record a lessons masterclass. Okay, can you please email me and I'll get back to you tomorrow. Thank you. Vietnam, oh, lovely. Oh, okay, there's Mo. He's online now. I'm very, very excited to be joined by Mo. By the way, he's a pharmacist, he's a toxicologist. He's going to be answering all your questions regarding effectiveness, ingredients thresholds. And let me see, there he is. Go live.
Good evening.
Hi,
Hi, Shadam. How are you?
I'm good, Mo. How are you? Good afternoon.
Thank you. How was your day?
Yeah, good. I'm so tired now, but I was so looking forward to be joined by you.
Me as
I was like, yeah, like it was a beautiful ending to the weekend of Sunday.
thank you.
How you been?
I'm doing fine. It's a good day. It's a weekend, so I'm not complaining.
Exactly, exactly. So I was just introducing you to our listeners here. I am going to be saving this live. Hopefully, like I think you can still save lives, right?
I think, yeah, after you
Okay,
have to press the option like save or post, you can do both. I think I'm not very good
perfect.
with this.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to be saving the live. So I know we set our limit to 40 to 45 minutes, maybe even shorter, but maybe even longer. We see. But there might be a part two coming as well, because depending on all the questions that we ask, and obviously we have a lot to get through. So yeah, without
For
further
sure.
ado, please introduce yourself to everyone and we can get
Hey,
started.
hey everyone. My name is Mohammed. You can call me Mo. I am the responsible behind the page of Mo Skill Lab here on Instagram and YouTube, and of course TikTok. And I'm a pharmacist, toxicologist, and safety assessor of personal care product. I talk about the safety of your cosmetic, makeup, and skincare. I also talk about the aspect of toxicology, the principle, and I try to present those information as simple as I can so everyone can have their peace of mind when they are using the product that you can get from your drugstore or your pharmacy.
Definitely. If you're not already following, you have to follow Mo, because I love watching your videos. They're so explanatory, but at the same time very simple to understand. And I think when it comes to skincare science, for such a complicated topic, for us to be able to simplify it, that we can convey the information either in a schematic or in a 1 minute video, it actually requires a lot of skill. So,
Yes,
but
yes,
when I listen to you and I'm like, oh, I've actually learned something new in 1 minute. So I thought, okay, if we can do this for 40 minutes, then we can learn even more.
exactly, exactly. It's only 1 minute, but the work behind the scene is like
I know.
how to
Yeah,
squeeze all this information in 1 minute.
I know exactly. I feel you on that, definitely. So I think what we should do, me and Mo, we had this discussion of what we should be going through, and collated all the questions that I have been getting and he's been getting. So we had like a mini, well, I wouldn't say mini because actually our conversation lasted for 1 hour, 10 minutes over WhatsApp.
Exactly.
Everything. So, yeah, so I think the first question that we said that we can talk about, and I'll give you obviously the stage because this is your profession, your bread and butter. How is the legislation of EU comparing to, for example, the legislation of USA? That's quite different when it comes to skincare manufacturing, as well as labeling requirements, etc., and the safety assessment, and for it to be sold in USA versus the EU. How does that differ? If you can explain that, please.
Yeah, so the EU is quite different from the standpoint of the US. What we can say is that we established the first point is that safety is almost equal between the two. It's just how we do the risk assessment between the EU and the US. The requirement documentation and what is, let's say, the checklist needed for the product to be placed on the market in the EU is a bit longer compared to the US. In the US, it's more about like putting a lot of responsibility on the brand itself. Like the brand has to take responsibility for safety of the product. If there's any, let's say, side effect, bad reaction, the company has to follow up with the consumer and the customer and to see how things can be done. If we need a recall or it's just an individual accident or anything like that. In the EU, it's a bit different. The safety and, let's say, the risk assessment, the toxicological study, the stability test, the microbiology test, challenging test, all of those are required to be done. In the US, it's not actually required by law. It's only required a few, let's say, risk assessment, label review, and claim review. But the brand has to do those to avoid any kind of, let's say, if the situation got worse, any kind of a lawsuit from a consumer, etc. So the difference, the main difference is that the documentation, listing, and checklist is way longer in the EU, but in the US, a lot of the requirements are done by the brand itself. So to ensure safety, of course, it's in the US, you are required to make sure the product is safe. And this is only the responsibility of the brand itself. And this is only the main difference. The EU is more like conservative and tell you X, Y, and Z is not allowed to exist in the product. In the US is more like we put the only very toxic ingredient, the one that they compared 2,000 in the EU and 10 in the US between the banned ingredients. But in the US, of course, it's not allowed to put drugs in your cosmetics, for example. It's not allowed to put, it's like, let's say the law itself rely on the common sense in the US, but in the EU is more like everything is written down. You need to know everything, every compound, every ingredient, the safety limit, etc.
Yeah, and that's why we were saying that there's a lot of brands launching in USA versus brands launching in European Union. And we see a lot of like exciting products, exciting brandings, etc., rising from the US market. But then also, if, for example, that brand is just starting off and you would like to get into the European market and to be represented by like retailers, etc., or you would like to be definitely entering into the European market, it's important that these kind of safety regulations are done beforehand than later on. And that's probably one of the reasons why we're seeing these US brands launching in European Union later on, right? It takes time for them to get into European Union market or the GB market. Now United Kingdom is no longer in the European Union, like really the same. And that's why I think for a point of view where if you would like to raise a brand or create a brand and you'd like for it to be launched in the European Union, it's probably best, and you are based in USA, it's probably best to get your safety assessments done as you are launching in the European Union. So I think that's probably like the only difference I would say, because otherwise it will just take a lot of time to go through the same safety assessments and same requirements.
Exactly. You will have to like establish yourself in the US at first, get yourself a solid ground, do all the requirement. There are a lot of agencies that works on different market that can help you with the requirement for each market. And if you've done this before and you want to expand to the EU, for example, the process will be much, much easier. And then waiting for risk assessment, creating a PIF for the product, etc. If you've done this before, let's say the transition would be much, much simpler.
And as well as in the Asian market, because 70% of the regulations, like especially in Malaysia and Singapore, they're very, very close to the European Union market. So
exactly.
Again, like I launched my brand in United Kingdom, but however, I'm manufacturing in Malaysia and in around Asia. So it's always important to check back in GB. Am I able to still manufacture here in Southeast Asia, but then still be able to sell in GB? So I think these are quite important questions that the brand should be asking. But
exactly.
Based on that, I say probably now what is the next question is on the safety limits of certain ingredients. So we talked about salicylic acid. We talked about, for example, some of the alpha-arbutin, hydroquinone, etc. Yeah, let's talk about that, because I think percentages is quite a topic where everyone's like a bit like, oh, like how can we find this percentage in GB or in the European Union versus we can't find that in USA. So yeah, let us talk about the safety limits to each country. Why is it different? And also I let you explain as well why face percentages are differing towards body percentages when it comes to acids as well. So yeah, here you go.
Okay, so it's a very, very interesting topic, and let's say has a lot of details in it, but to simplify it as much as possible is that how we safety assess certain ingredient in different market, for example, in the EU versus the US, is just the process is different. The kind of data that is required is also kind of different. That's why, for example, in the US, the percentage of salicylic acid is compared to the EU is different. It's the same compound, salicylic acid, but dependent on where are you geographically or under which regulatory body you are under, the percentage is different. And that does not mean that the US, for example, if they have higher percentage, they are unsafe, or in the EU, they are very conservative. It's not that, because safety, as we discussed, that it's not an agreed on term. It's like what's safe in Europe may not be safe in the US and vice versa. And when it comes to how, for example, safety limits are set, it all starts with the discovery of, for example, compound X. They start to do very preliminary studies on it to see and set a safety limit from animal studies. I know some people say animal studies are not very representative and etc., but they are the main source of data that we get it from. We extract this specific number, and then we do an extrapolation with math equation to translate this data from animal to human. And then we use this data, same data, and see, okay, if we put it in this product and we apply it on a certain amount with certain surface area, for let's say the face, is it going to be safe? The systemic exposure, how much is absorbed into the bloodstream? Is it safe for us? And then we decide how much is the percentage. So it's a lot of calculation from the data from the animals until we reach into the final product. So that's why we see, and I did a couple of pieces of content around this, is that please don't use, for example, a face product with a high concentration of acid, for example, the peeling solution by The Ordinary. Don't use it all over the body. Don't use it on your private area, etc. Because it is safety assessed for your face, because we know how much estimated amount you are going to apply on your face. We know the surface area, general surface area of your face. and then we can know how much is absorbed, and we know it is safe for you. But if you apply something for your face on your body, the surface area is much, much larger. The different type of the skin on your different part of your body absorb differently, and will be very risky, in my opinion, to do.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. So in terms of, are we talking mostly about the active ingredients now, right? So we're talking about
Yes.
acid and the retinoids, etc.
Exactly. The
I,
one that has a lot of, let's say, activity, like the acid, for example, retinoids, bleaching agent, brightening agent. Those are the ones that have a, let's say, physiological effect.
Okay. So bear that in mind, everyone, in the future as well. If you have any, that's the reason probably why I always say, like, if you have a face product, that's the reason why they are in small components, right? There are 30 milliliters, 50 milliliters. When it comes to face creams, they're 50 milliliters. The reason why they're not in big packaging is that people will automatically think that, for example, for an eye cream, right, it's 15 milliliter. So if I get an eye cream, I'm not going to be applying it all over my body because it's in a very small packaging. So it automatically limits the consumer to use in less quantities. And that's the reason, right? Because I get lots of questions, why can't we get full size or 100 milliliter eye creams? So we don't need to repeat it when you buy. Because the surface area that you're using the eye cream is very small. So therefore, you'll need a small quantity. Whereas with body care products, obviously body lotions, body washes, etc., the minimum quantity that you'll find in store would be 100 milliliters, and because that's about the surface area that we talked about. So that's a very interesting topic, actually. And in terms of like the minimum and the maximum threshold when we're setting, in terms of more about the active ingredients here, not so much on the oils or the emollients, but when we talk about, for example, retinol, right? We know that we can be using 0.01% up to 1%. So tell me about that minimum and maximum threshold set. So when it comes to that minimum threshold, how is the study done in terms of in order to find the effectiveness, and what is that, how that lowest threshold is set? And when it comes to the highest threshold of 1%, how is that threshold set in terms of percentage?
Okay, so when we study any ingredients on the market, there are safety studies that set the higher limits and efficacy study that set the minimum limits. So when we study, for example, retinoids, they try it, for example, depending on what type of study they are done, they try different dosages and they see the response to do what we call a dose response curve. We see, okay, 1%, let's say, for example, give us 20% response, 2% give us 30%, etc., until we see a certain toxicity or a side effect or an adverse effect. Then we set a high limit. This is the maximum limit, and we set it between X and Y. So the safety is done at first of the beginning of the study. It is done like for like a very severe adverse effect, like cytotoxicity, carcinogenicity, and those type. It's done at first. Then the efficacy is done. Then an in-depth toxicological study is done in the future to set the exact limit for regulation. So this is the simplified version of how a specific range is designed or set.
And that's important, especially when we probably don't have to be worrying about this in terms of from a consumer point of view, because the brand would have had to do all of this. And in fact, it's sometimes not even the brand that sets these rules. It's actually the manufacturer of the ingredient, and then the safety assessments on the manufacturing of that ingredient. So as a brand, if you get niacinamide in order to create your niacinamide serum, you get a manufacturing information, you get the MSDS, for example, material safety data sheet. You get all of these information presented to you by the manufacturer. And that's why I always say, for example, you check a couple of manufacturers to see what is the safety limitation in terms of like the minimum, the maximum threshold, because sometimes purity matters as well, as you know, right? Sometimes we might think that glycolic acid, for example, is at high, like 100%, but then you look at the manufacturing information and it's probably 50% water and 50% glycolic acid. So then obviously that percentage would differ as well on how much you can use in the product. So
Exactly. That's why we see different from different manufacturer. For example, from manufacturer A, the information said you can use niacinamide between 1 and 5. The other manufacturer you can use it up to, for example, 5 to 10%. It's the advised. They say the advised percentage for your product, because the actual complex of it's not just like niacinamide. Sometimes it has a emollient, a solvent, or any kind of other kind of compound that affect the actual percentage.
and sometimes the manufacturing, as you know, would also do some safety studies, and I think those are probably the ones that I would sway towards, like the manufacturers who would also do some clinical studies. Now, I know these are not probably not published, right, unless you go to the manufacturer itself and you can then download the materials. But in terms of, for example, if I know like Bakuchiol, for example, is gaining a lot of popularity at the moment, and I just sat and listened to a Bakuchiol manufacturer giving information on why it is an alternative to retinol. So they're basically saying that minimum and the maximum threshold. And they're saying that 2% is the maximum threshold because that's the clinical study that we have done on, but then that we haven't done anything on top of 2%. So that's exactly where how they set their threshold, saying, okay, we recommend brands to be using anywhere between 1 to 2%. But then as a brand, if I'm looking at that manufacturing data and the studies done, and if I'm saying, for example, seeing that 2% has given me these benefits, then I think it's all to do with the brand. Am I going to be using at the recommended on the clinical percentage, so 2% Bakuchiol, or shall I go and just for the marketing state of it, put 0.1% Bakuchiol, but then states that this product has Bakuchiol? So it's all to do with the branding side of things as well, because we see that a lot, like vitamin C serums being produced, and the vitamin C is like 0.0 something percentage, but then it's a vitamin C serum. So for a consumer, that's where I feel like people lose that transparency and that trust. And I would always say, if you are using a specific active ingredient, and this is like my piece of advice to the brand, like it would be always lovely to state, maybe not on the label, but on the website of the percentages that you are using. So the consumer would say, okay, I'm using this product and I'm expecting to see a benefit from it. And I think that's quite important. And that's our duty of care to our consumer, I think. So hopefully any brand listening, they would be writing down either on the label or on the website. Because that's like for me, like as you can, I'm sure you have been in that situation as well. You get a vitamin C serum, it's like, what's the percentage? Is it going to be effective?
It's even worse sometimes. For example, it's a widespread issue here in the EU that you don't find a body lotion with retinol at all here in the EU. I don't know why, but when you find one that states specifically retinol on the packaging, on the front packaging, you turn it and you read the ingredients, it's retinol palmitate. And it's not retinol. It is allowed, actually. It's like kind of a loophole in regulation that you can say every derivative of vitamin A, you can say it's a retinol because it's the general term, umbrella term for all the derivative. And that's why... yeah, it's annoying, to be honest. I don't know why it's happening. It's allowed in the EU to... for a body product to have 0.05%, I think, as I remember, for retinol, but you can't find it at all. So I don't know why it's an issue. So you have to turn sometimes and read the ingredients.
That, and also, like, for example, I see brands that promote the percentage of the trademark ingredient that they're using. So, for example, if they're using encapsulated retinol is it might be in a very small percentage, but they will say, okay, I'm using, I don't want to brand shame, so I won't name the brand at all, but they would say, okay, so 3% retinol. But then when you turn around or read, you know that it's not 3%. The whole encapsulated material is 3%. But then it's only, from that Inculus, it's only 10% retinol. So really, it's 0.3% retinol. So whoever would buy it would think, oh my God, I'm getting 3%, but actually it's 0.3% because it's 10% of the whole formula. So these are like the things like probably like the scientific community would very, very quickly recognize, but the consumer wouldn't. So it's probably up to us to always educate our consumer. And
Yeah,
that's another
definitely. It's a
reason.
sneaky, let's say, sneaky kind
Sneaky
of
marketing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes they don't even mention it on the back. You have to go to the website to see it's like a trademark complex, and you go to the manufacturer to understand that it is like 0.03% or even lower. So
Yeah. Another one probably you'll also know that it's like hyaluronic acid. So hyaluronic acid is always sold as hyaluronic acid serum. It's never sold as sodium hyaluronate serum. So sodium
exactly,
hyaluronate is the sodium salt of hyaluronic acid, which is like the lower than the 500 Dalton. So it's better penetration to the skin. However, when it comes to hyaluronic acid serums, it's never really mentioned sodium hyaluronate. So again, if you
exactly,
look back at your products, you'll probably notice that most of your hydrating serums has sodium hyaluronate and the hydrolyzed forms of sodium hyaluronate. So yeah,
exactly.
yeah, all about these marketing terms is like
Yeah, we
the
can go for hours.
I
Just
know.
saying.
Let's skip. But whilst we're on the percentage topic,
Yeah.
niacinamide. You probably know where I'm going with this. Niacinamide. Yeah, which is like an interesting one for me because like I use niacinamide. I know lots of my clients and lots of professionals would like, use niacinamide in their products. But the question I would like to ask you is if we know that niacinamide has benefits at 5%, right? So we have done studies in terms of like, not we as in me and you, but like there are clinical studies to say that 2% niacinamide increases collagen production, 5% niacinamide can help with acne. I wouldn't use the word treatment of acne at all, but will help with acne by regulating the sebum. So then why does brands, knowing these percentages, go above that and produce something at 10%, 12%, 20%? So,
Okay, so it's a kind of like a multifactorial issue, to be honest. It is caused by multiple reasons. What I believe personally, reason number one is marketing. People understand that if I have more, I will get more as a result. So if I have 10% niacinamide, I will get double the result of 5%. It's just in our nature as a human, like more equals give us more benefit. And the second possible reason is that if the company has enough money to do an R&D research about using higher percentage of niacinamide, they can do actually some small clinical study that could find maybe a potential that 10% give, let's say, 30 or 20% more result when it comes to regulating oil on the skin. This is also a possibility, but the brand does not have to share that. It's a kind of a secret for them or like an advantage over the competitors. So I think those are the main reason why. And let's say it created what we call like a percentage race. It's like if I have more, you will get more results. And most of the time, it's not the case. Like, okay, we know we have benefit with 5%. And specifically niacinamide, that people with higher percentage, a lot of people felt side effect like redness, sometimes irritation and skin barrier dysfunction with high percentage. And some people actually saw benefit with it. So we can't conclude 100% that higher is better or higher is safer. So that's the case.
Yeah. And I think probably in terms of a consumer point of view, normally the lower percentages would be present in multifunctional or multi-ingredient products, right? So you wouldn't buy a face moisturizer that would have 10% niacinamide. That 10% niacinamide would probably be sold as a separate standalone ingredient and a product. So either mixed with zinc or other, hopefully soothing ingredients that will help support the skin barrier as well. So when it comes to high percentages, guys, you probably would see it as a separate standalone product. When it comes to high percentages, it's probably not going to be included in a moisturizer. That's probably the tendency that I like, the trend that I see. Like higher the percentage it goes into a serum and it gets used into a standalone ingredient. And this is why I always say in terms of active ingredients, if we know what we're looking for. So why am I using niacinamide? Am I using it to control my sebum? Am I using it to stimulate my collagen? Right? So if you know the reason why you're using a certain ingredient, you can get those similar benefits from lots of other ingredients. So go for multifunctional and multi-ingredient based products.
that will save your money. And I think in terms of when it comes to penetration, and that's probably your profession as well, when it comes to penetration, it's going to be better rather than layering serum by serum by serum. It's better to be using a one product that contains like the safe and effective measures of some of the ingredients, but plentiful ingredients rather than just focusing on the one high percentage.
Exactly.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I am all for, like, I'm exposing myself. I am all for like multifunctional product. It's more convenient. I'm lazy. I don't want to do 10 steps, skincare routine.
Yeah.
I wish I have one product that have everything, but it's not possible. Yeah, so I really, really like, if you want to get the benefit of a certain ingredient, you know it's going to give you benefit and you know that is your concern with your skin, okay, go for a serum with a concentration that is typically higher than what you can find in a regular moisturizer. You can see benefit. A lot of people saw benefit with 10%. A lot of people saw with a 20%. So it's all about, you are going to try the product. It's about a trial and error kind of thing. But don't feel pushed in a way. If you have let's say a moisturizer with 5% and you see great result, don't think that it is 100% with the 10% niacinamide I'm going to see result. It's not always the case. You don't know.
Yeah, exactly. That concludes that topic very well. Let me see. So we talked about we talked about everyone's inflammatory and immune response being different as well, and that's that's why something like people may react to a certain ingredient and some people may not. Right? So I personally reacted to 10%, but I know people that, as you said, loving 10%. So it's all about trial and error. So we talked about why brands increase. All right, let's talk about the two sensitive key topics. Clean beauty and medical grade skincare in terms of like the regulation. And I'll let you say in terms of what, shall we start with clean beauty? I think we talked about it being it's not being a regulated term and the scientific community really not recognizing it. But yeah, how would you like to explain that?
Clean beauty is something interesting, let's say. I don't want to drag anyone here, but it's something interesting because I don't find it 100% bad, like something is like evil or going to ruin your life. No. But I see the technique that they use for marketing is that they rely on fear a lot. They rely on data that is misrepresented. They take specific, like cherry picking data to, let's say, spread their kind of message or claim. But in general, when it comes to regulation, clean is not regulated. Actually, in the EU, there is a guide that is publicly available for brands to see that have a lot of kind of anti-clean. It's not to specifically or directly say this, but it has a lot of messages or advices to brand to not use those kind of claims because it is unfair. For example, one of the key advice from the EU is that fairness of a claim. When you say your product is paraben free, you give the idea that the competitor with parabens, their product is unsafe, and that is not fair for competition between brands. So in the EU, there is kind of recognition that there is clean beauty. There is kind of advice towards working against it, but it's not like straight on or direct recognition. Okay, we have clean beauty, we have to regulate this term or not. So in general, clean beauty provide an option. This is the positive side that I see of clean beauty. It's provide an option for people that may be allergic to parabens. Maybe they have a specific reaction to a specific fragrance. It gives those small percentage of people an option to use and enjoy cosmetics. I know a lot of clean beauty, in a way, it's a spectrum. Some brands say, okay, we use preservative, but we use a specific type of preservative to be extra caution, let's say, caution. But there are other, on the other end of the extreme clean beauty, that say we don't use preservative, everything is natural, we don't use any chemical. This section of the spectrum, I'm against 100% because it sets the consumer health at risk. I'm against this. But when brands say, okay, we don't use parabens and full stop, okay, you are giving an option. But other brands say, okay, we don't use paraben because they are endocrine disruptor and they are going to give you cancer. This is I'm against. Yes. The idea is about the messaging and not, okay, you want to provide an option? I'm supporting you 100%. But provide this option without fee. That is the main point.
Yes, it's more about like the fear mongering of fear mongering the consumer and everyone having to rethink of what they're using is actually going to be really, really bad for them. Exactly. Not only for their skin, but also for their health. So I'll say the question I would ask for someone who's particularly sensitive about this subject is, what does clean mean to you? Right? Why? Like everyone has a different clean statement, right? Exactly. And what does it mean to you? Does it mean that you don't want to be using any synthetic ingredients? Like, is that what it means? Right? If that's the case, you can still get products that have natural alternatives of some of the active ingredients that we talked about, but then you have to be aware that you're probably not going to be getting the similar effectiveness because the natural products spectrum is not regulated in a way where you have to do clinical testing in order to specify it's going to be good for you or not. So I'll say, ask, what does clean mean to you? If it means that, okay, I just do not want to use parabens, then some of the products or brands would not necessarily say that they are clean, but they do not just include parabens, right? There's a lot of brands that are very, very popular that they're not necessarily using parabens, but they don't publicly announce that they're clean or they're all natural or they're chemical free. So I think being in between, I think is probably understanding that demographic as well. I think we still need to understand that demographic because it is a growing market, right? We're seeing more people who are sensitized towards certain ingredients. People are more susceptible to choosing something based on fear, unfortunately, but it is a growing market. So I think we still have a lot to do in terms of educating that market. But as well as, I don't think it's necessarily bad for brands to be producing things, maybe not specifying it's, as you said, like all the others are bad, but to specifying that my product is clean of these certain ingredients and it will be suitable for the people who might be susceptible to some of these ingredients. And I think it's just giving an option to all.
Exactly. I agree 100%. To be honest, it's about the language, kind of how you are going to deliver this message. Because let's take an example for big brands are producing, like, for example, I will mention this brand Aven, have a product that is totally preservative free. They have a product that is 100% preservative free for people that are sensitive towards preservative. And they did that without any increased risk by special packaging, airtight, and special facilities, special production line. And it costs a bit more, but it provided an option. With that, I supported 100%. Okay, it's an option for people with extra sensitive skin towards anything. So why not?
Yeah, that's perfect because that brand would have that the ingredient that they don't have it, like the preservative product and another product which does not contain preservative, let's say, right? Exactly. Or a specific. And you also see that, for example, we talked about parabens, but most of the time that's in terms of the safety on the skin and in terms of it being less sensitizing on the skin, it is probably the one preservative that doesn't cause you the sensitization like all the other natural alternatives of preservatives. So you'll see, and then we'll quickly jump onto the topic of drug, like products that are used and over the counter or prescribed. You'll see that those specific inky would contain parabens.
Exactly.
Right? It's because it's safe, effective, easy to use, it's cheap, right? So these are all bingo signs on the manufacturer in terms of they don't want to be causing sensitization. So most of the companies that produce drug products would not be looking into natural alternatives. because it will cost them so much money to be able to redo that clinical testing. And then you don't know, especially in terms of sensitization, if you're using a product, for example, containing benzoyl peroxide or hydroquinone, etc., or retinoic acid, that could potentially be an irritant anyway. Why add another possible irritant when you can get no sensitization from paraben? So you'll see lots of products still including paraben, especially in the drug market, which is going to lead on to my next question in terms of medical grade skincare.
Medical grade, the only topic that caused
going along.
Yeah, the medical grade is unfortunately is not a thing. Let's agree on that first. I know some people will get mad at me because of this, and some people already did like state their a very honest opinion to me that why are you saying this? But I'm saying what the laws are, what the regulation are towards cosmetics. In the market, there are only two categories. Let's understand this: a cosmetics and a drug. In the drug category, there is an OTC and prescription. For example, let's say you got.
By the way, I'm cutting you, but OTC over the counter.
Yeah, OTC is over the counter that you can get it in the pharmacy, and for example, in the US, you can get it in the drugstore. So everything you can grab from the counter without need of prescription from a pharmacist or let's say a doctor. So people sometimes confuse this with cosmetics. They say OTC ingredients or OTC skincare or OTC cosmetics. Those two things are separated. They are not the same. For example, let's take benzoyl peroxide. You can't say benzoyl peroxide is an OTC skincare because it's actually in the US, it's regulated as a drug under the OTC regulation, and that's it. In the EU, it's the same. It's regulated as a drug. You can get it as from the pharmacy specifically. For example, in the US, you can get it from a cosmetic brand, but they will register it as an OTC drug. In the EU, you can't find it. For example, recently the Inkilis launched their super solution, I think it's called line with benzoyl peroxide. You won't see benzoyl peroxide here in Europe at all because it's specifically made through pharmaceutical company under the OTC regulation, and that's it. In the US, it's a different story. It's OTC, but cosmetic brands can do the whole registration and process. So that's the issue. Medical grade, the people who defend this idea, they say it's between a drug and a cosmetics. But actually, there is no like in between cases. There are specific, very rare situations in the cosmetic industry that says there are borderline, let's say borderline products, and they are immediately put on against a panel of experts to decide, okay, it's a cosmetic or a drug. We don't leave it on the borderline situation. I will give you an example of a borderline that is happening, a continuous negotiation in the regulatory body about the lashes serum that contain prostaglandin analogs. And there are discussion about their safety, whether it's a drug or it's a cosmetics. The safety until now in Europe is not set. Like there are no safety kind of limits or threshold. And in the future, I think they will be transferred towards OTC drugs or drugs because they are used in a very small concentration but have very strong biological effects. So it falls under the kind of drug or OTC regulation. So there is no in the market product that is borderline or medical grade or spa grade or whatever. It's only cosmetics or drug.
Okay, yeah, that's very important to know. I think when people, like especially I will say the medical grade skincare concept has been from the doctors who sell skincare in clinic, right? In that case, if it's like brands that you are collaborating with and you need a specific prescription for that, like you can't buy that specific product, let's say from online, or you can't find it over the counter. but it needs to be prescribed to you. So rather than saying it's medical grade skincare, it's actually prescription skincare, right? So which will be in the category of drug, right?
Exactly.
So for example,
or it could be OTC.
Or it could be OTC, yeah, depending. Like, so for example, if it's hydroquinone, and rather than grading as medical grade skincare, it will be actually a prescription item, prescription skincare that needs supervision whilst we are using it, right? That's the whole point of a prescription. You have gone to someone and they have prescribed to you, and therefore you would need supervision. So that means you have to go back and see the progress. So in that case, it's prescription. So that's like ingredients such as tretinoin. Now, I know that I'm kind of lucky. I would have to say that I live in Malaysia where tretinoin, I can actually go to the pharmacy and ask, and I would get it.
Yeah.
Very confident. You're like, can I have tretinoin, please? And they were like,
that's
okay,
why I miss home. That's why I miss home.
Yeah, right. And the same as well.
Yeah.
So, and it's like super cheap. Like it's like 10 euros or something like that, which is amazing. So I'm not complaining about that. But yeah, so depending, but let's say tretinoin normally in Europe and in USA, it's prescription only, right? So in that case, that will count as not medical grade skincare, but prescription skincare. But if, for example, retinol, like there are, again, like the argument of retinol, just because it's, well, I'll just basically have to say it, I'm sorry, but Obagi, for example, right? So Obagi has a retinol product. So in that case, you don't need a prescription to buy Obagi retinol, because retinol is a cosmeceutical ingredient that is included in all cosmeceutical products. So to specify that as medical grade skincare is incorrect, right? We agreed on that. Just because, for example, Obagi has a retinoic acid or a tretinoin option does not put that specific product under the category of medical grade skincare. However, yes, tretinoin is a prescription, so then you can understand why they might use that term. So I think we just need to be clear in that when it comes to marketing as well, because again, it's all about the marketing message. Because when you say I sell medical grade skincare, automatically people think that, okay, your products would work better than X, Y, and Z, when it's exactly the same ingredient. So again, it's that transparency.
Yeah, it's just we have to understand it as simple as possible. That's a drug and cosmetics. That's a don't over yourself or overload yourself with medical grade, spa grade, or any kind of new term that pops up every once in a while. So just focus, is it a drug or is it a cosmetics? And you will be a lot more comfortable with that.
Yes, exactly. So shall we open up for some questions?
Yeah.
Let's give 5 minutes for questions. I know some people are asking direct questions, like for first-time acne treatment, what ingredients can I use, salicylic, retinol, or others for cystic acne? I think I don't want to give any like specific advice over here. Yeah, I think we'll skip these specific questions. But if you have any questions on ingredients, percentages, in general.
Yeah. And I wish they put them in the question box, because in the comments they will move a lot. So in the question box, guys, you can add them so we can see them clearly.
Many people requesting to join. What is the maximum concentration of fragrance allowed in cosmetics?
Okay, so in the specific number, to be honest, I'm not sure, because like I said, that's open another discussion that regulation changes a lot. And that's a fact that we all need to understand. For example, UV filter in the EU dropping the percentage every once in a while when there is new data. So the actual number, it's not on my mind right now, but I remember the document that I read, it's between, actually it's one number, 0.001%. I'm not 100% sure, but when I find it, I will post it on my story. You can check it out later.
With fragrance, it's very, very pungent, so you almost feel like you don't need to be adding a lot, and you get a lot of scent out. With essential oils, it's a different story. I feel like when I need to add essential oils to the product, you need to add in more to get the similar scent.
Exactly.
So essential oils, generally, if you find that you're using a product that has essential oils, it's definitely well, I wouldn't say definitely, but it's probably more than 0.5%, up to 1%, let's say. But fragrance, I would say, yeah, as you said, like very, very, very low.
Very low, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if there is.
Yeah, now they're going up 2 seconds. Let me just quickly check. Some brands won't give you a percentage of products because they are proprietary information. How do we go about that?
Actually, that's an issue. You have to trust the brand. That's it. This is the only answer that I can give you. For example, some brand can patent their, for example, creation, let's say, and then they can publish that because it's protected under the patent. But some brands will not publish. For example, let's say they are making a mixture of antioxidant that is giving an amazing result for the skin. They are allowed not to mention the percentage in a way, and they will call it as a complex, like, I don't know, antioxidant complex, whatever. So unfortunately, you can't. Maybe if you know the manufacturer, maybe if you request a sample or you are a brand owner or something, it is possible. But if the brand itself created that mixture without a manufacturer, you can't know.
Yeah, it's mostly not. Yeah, that's true. They never hardly mention any of the percentages in that sense.
Yeah.
You'll probably have to just like look at the ingredient list and see where it lies down on the ingredient list.
Yeah. You get a few information from that.
Yeah, apart from that, I don't think we would be able to know. But yeah, certain ingredients, like even if they give you one ingredient percentage, then you're kind of lucky because then you can kind of predict anything like before that will probably be more than that percentage. Anything that comes after is going to be less than that percentage. So that's kind of like the starting point.
Exactly.
Sometimes like preservative, you'll actually see them high up in the ingredient list. And if it's an active ingredient that's going to be included after that, I will probably say that's probably low in that concentration as well. Like phenoxyethanol. Like if it's like after that, I would say, oh, it's probably a low percentage. So there are
there's
like
a high chance.
Yeah, that you can use. Let me go. Should we use vitamin C day or night? I would say vitamin C antioxidant probably mostly during the day. If it's a vitamin C derivative, you might even find that it's included in your retinol. So like THC, ascorbate, etc. But if it's L-ascorbic acid, I'll say definitely during the day.
Yeah.
CeraVe has a new foam option with salicylic acid. I haven't tried this. Is that the renewing one or the soothing one? I'm not too sure.
I think they have a new one, the acne. I'm not sure. I'm don't follow like a lot of because the lunches are in the past few weeks are crazy. So yeah, I think they have one with 2% as a face wash. It's good, and face wash are effective if they have active ingredients. They can work. It's not like you're washing. It's a myth that you're washing the active in the sink. So it can give you great dose of the active ingredients.
And then, a bit of a sensitive question. You mentioned animal testing being important. Are cruelty-free products reliable?
Yeah, let's say that is since 2013, I think, in the EU, it's banned to test cosmetics on animals, and in 2014, I think it is banned on testing the raw materials of cosmetics on animals. So it's cruelty-free is just stating the facts that it's of course it's not tested on animal. I'm talking about EU specifically. Because like I say, it's banned by the law, and even if it's important from another place and you want to place it on the market, you have to bid to those laws. And the animal study, when I said it's important for the raw materials when it's used in not only cosmetics. Let's say, for example, salicylic acid. Salicylic acid, it is not just a raw material for let's say cosmetics. It can be used in different industries, pharmaceutical, to make aspirin, etc. So if this ingredient is used in other kind of industries, animal study can be requested by the EU to be done for the people safety, for the actual worker in the labs, the worker in the factories. So animal study is not 100% banned for other industries, but for cosmetic industry, it is.
Okay. Thank you for the confirmation.
I see a question about alpha-arbutin. Is it safe if more than 2%? Can the percentage go up to 5%? So the EU regulation for alpha-arbutin is that alpha-arbutin is safe up to 2% for the face product and 0.5% for the body. And the beta-arbutin, which is it's the same compound with a different a mirror structure, let's say. It is effective, safe up to, as I remember, 7%. So some brands say it contains 5% arbutin, but they don't specify which arbutin they are used, because alpha-arbutin is more effective at the lower concentration, and beta-arbutin is less effective, but that's why it needs higher concentration.
Again, that's a marketing term, isn't it? Like 5%.
It's the same issue.
Yeah, it's probably not alpha-arbutin then.
Yeah.
Can 5% niacinamide have effects on collagen, as you said earlier? Yes, correct, it can. Oh. Sorry. I can tell I'm very professional.
Don't worry, I'm just like confused as you. Don't worry.
Okay. Oh God. Okay. Is it true that? Okay, yeah, that you answered that. What is your take on speck white? Speck white. Is that a trademark that contains active ingredients? I probably have to look at the.
We need more information if it's like complex for maybe.
Probably a complex.
Yeah.
Okay, now question box. Where can we find scientific data, animal studies online, etc.? Are these published?
Yeah, they're like the toxicology journal publish a lot of in vivo data of animal study for different kind of compounds, not just for cosmetics. Another one is that the opinions of the SCCS from the European Union, it contains, for example, when they assess specifically cosmetic ingredients, they have include the data and the study they consider during the process of risk assessment of the product, of the ingredients. So if you want to like look, for example, a UV filter in this report, it definitely sometimes can be a 50-page report. So you have to scroll a little bit and look for the data that you want. What kind of endpoints are you looking at, like genotoxicity, carcinogenicity, or I don't know, adverse side effect, systemic toxicity? Those kind of endpoints you have to look in the report, and you can find those. It's like a little bit of a tedious process, but you definitely can have access to those.
Okay, perfect. Is there any point in using exfoliating acids in wash-off products, and which? I would say, like with exfoliating acids, I would definitely use it like as my second step, you know, so like let's say if you're going to be using it at night, make sure you're applying it on a clean skin. So the first cleanser would be like an oil-based balm-based cleanser, so you get rid of the dirt and the makeup or the sunscreen, etc. And then the second cleanser could have like either an AHA, BHA combination. Avoid it around the eyes. If you want to maybe let it sit for 20 seconds and then you wash it. But generally speaking, with exfoliating acid on that as wash off, the formulation would be done in a way where you are using permeation penetration enhancer. Yeah, penetration enhancer. So the surfactants that will be chosen towards that as well. So yeah, it shouldn't be a problem. Like you can use exfoliating benefits.
Yeah, there are a lot of technology in formulation that allow the deposit of salicylic acid. Actually, there are studies that show that with continuous use, there are a continuous deposit until we reach an effective concentration of salicylic acid in the skin. So yes, cleanser can be definitely. Actually, I made a reel about it, about the salicylic acid. How is it actually with specific surfactant can help neutralize the the negative charge of the skin and allow salicylic acid and hyaluronic acid, for example, to set on your skin without being washed off. So yeah, definitely you can.
And I think final. Oh wait, I have more. What percentage of vitamin C serum is needed for 40s age group? I think it all depends on the vitamin C option. So if it's LS core, yeah, 10%, 15%. If it's a vitamin C derivative, it really all depends on what the percentage is required. But have a look at
what you can handle.
Yeah, exactly. It's what you can handle, definitely.
Okay.
But again, it's all about, do you know the question of, so you needing it for collagen production, so you don't only rely on vitamin C, but then you can add in your exfoliating acids, your retinol, etc., and you can get like multiple results by using multiple lactols, but obviously not together, right? That's a different topic. What's the maximum concentration of fragments? Oh, is it answer that? Okay, that's it. We answered all the questions, I believe.
I think yes. Tretinoin, can we give some information on that? What kind of information specifically? Because if we want to talk about tretinoin, we will need another live.
Yes, I think I did say we need like part 2, definitely. We do need.
Yeah, the same question, niacinamide in foam, how it's working. It will work. There will be a deposit on your skin. You will see result with continuous use. So don't worry about the myth that you are washing away your active.
And don't worry, you probably have it later on in any of the other products that you are using as well.
Exactly.
It's like niacinamide, hyaluronic acid, or whatever you call sodium hyaluronate. You can find them definitely in products. If your moisturizer is good, many of them are now included in sunscreens as well, which is really good. So I love like that now sunscreen will contain vitamin C or niacinamide, etc. So that's always an additional booster or like antioxidants. So I like it. The more the merrier.
Exactly. So they say is it advisable to use it every day, tretinoin? So tretinoin is a drug, and I don't really like to give advice about drug online because people can get crazy with it, let's say. But yes, from a scientific perspective, I would say the daily usage can give you better result if you can tolerate it. And of course, under the supervision of a dermatologist or medical care provider.
Yes, perfect. And I think that's it, Mo. We've completed it.
Yes. Did we break the time?
We have to have another second part. Now I'm liking this. I got into it. The first 5 minutes was like very, very tense. I was like, okay, like a business. But now I'm okay.
Definitely.
It takes time to get to these lives. But no, I really enjoyed it. My technology skills is very, very bad, especially when it comes to social media. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hopefully save it. And then I'll share it on my stories, and then also Mo will share it on his stories. But please go and follow Mo if you're not already. He's amazing. I learn from him every day. But I love the fact that you create video content. I love it, like just watching like minute video content when it comes to skincare science. It's just straight to the point. So I enjoyed my session with you very much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Any course you would suggest for compounding? I think there was actually one question, and I think I really want to ask you this. If anyone wants to do similar to, like, be a safety assessor, what are the kind of education routes that you would advise them to take?
Okay. So there are some kind of criteria. I'm talking again in the EU. There are some criteria to be a certified safety assessor for cosmetics, supplements, for pharmaceutical. It's different for each type, but you have to have a degree in pharmacy, medicine, or chemistry. Those are the main 3 kind of accepted degrees. Then you will do an extra training through a master degree or courses provided by specific agency in the EU. Then you will be able to register yourself as a safety assessor. and you can work in the public sector, like in the regulatory bodies, like for example, EFSA, the European Medicine Agency, or you can work in the private section with consultants and agencies for brands, for example, cosmetics, pharmaceutical supplements, etc.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, a very interesting topic to discover. We can talk about that later on.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, thank you so much. It was lovely seeing you. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday and take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
See
you
you
so
guys.
much. It was a pleasure. Bye. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Bye. Have a lovely day.